Here is something most families never talk about. The words you say out loud after 60 can quietly hand a stranger, or even a relative, the exact information they need to take your money, your peace, or your independence. Not because anyone is careless. Because certain phrases feel like small talk, but they are not. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what those phrases are, and what to say instead. Number 4 on this list is the one almost nobody sees coming, so stay with me. Let's start with the one that feels the most harmless. Someone asks casually, "So, are you all set for retirement?" And because you're proud of the work it took, you answer honestly. Maybe you even give a number. Here is why that single sentence is riskier than it sounds. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, in its reports on elder financial exploitation, describes a pattern they call trust and use. A person, sometimes a stranger, sometimes someone inside the family, first establishes trust, then uses financial details they've learned to justify a request for money later. The information itself becomes the tool. It doesn't have to be stolen. It can simply be given away, one comfortable conversation at a time. The Federal Trade Commission's Consumer Alerts on Elder Fraud, found at ftc.gov/scams, describe scammers specifically researching a target's financial situation before making contact, so the pitch sounds tailored, personal, believable. A number you mentioned at a barbecue 2 years ago can resurface in a phone call that feels eerily well-informed. What to say instead? When someone asks about your finances directly, you can simply say, "We're doing fine, thank you," and let the sentence end there. You are not being secretive. You are keeping a private fact private, the same way you would keep a medical detail or a password private. Politeness does not require disclosure. And here's a preview of where this list is heading. If revealing a savings number is risky, wait until you hear what happens when you reveal your daily routine. That's coming up in Block 2, and it changes how a house gets targeted, not just a bank account. This one sounds almost too simple to matter, and that's exactly why it works against you. "We'll be at our daughter's in Ohio for the whole week," said to a neighbor, a delivery driver, or posted with a smiling vacation photo, is a piece of scheduling information. And scheduling information is exactly what property crime depends on. The FTC's guidance on elder fraud doesn't only cover phone scams. It also addresses how routine details, when shared publicly or loosely, create opportunity. An empty house on a known date is not a secret worth keeping for privacy's sake alone. It's a safety detail, plain and simple. There's also a subtler version of this. Stanford psychologist Laura Carstensen, in her research on socio-emotional selectivity theory at the Stanford Center on Longevity, describes something important about how priorities shift with age. As people grow older, she found, they tend to focus more on emotionally meaningful, close relationships, and less on expanding their social circle. That's a good thing in most ways. It means deeper friendships, more trust in familiar people. But Carstensen's research also points to a side effect worth naming honestly. When trust concentrates into a smaller circle, people sometimes extend that same comfortable trust outward, to a friendly neighbor, a chatty new acquaintance, without applying the same caution they would have used decades earlier. The warmth is real. The risk is that warmth doesn't always distinguish between someone who has earned it and someone who is simply good at appearing to. What to say instead? Share travel plans after you return, not before. If a neighbor is watching your house, tell that one trusted person privately, not the group chat, not social media, not the checkout line at the grocery store. Now here's where it gets more uncomfortable, because Block 3 isn't about strangers at all. It's about what happens when the risk comes from inside the family. Take a moment and imagine a woman named Carol, 74, with two grown children. At a family dinner, half joking, she says, "Well, Mark's the one I'd trust to handle everything if something happened to me." It's said with love. It's said to make Mark feel valued. But it's also said in front of the other sibling. This is an example, not a real case. But it reflects a pattern the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau describes clearly in its material on elder financial exploitation. Financial abuse most often comes not from strangers, but from someone the older adult already knows and trusts, frequently a family member. And naming one child as the trusted one out loud doesn't just clarify intentions. It can quietly plant resentment. Or worse, it can hand that named child a kind of informal authority they haven't actually been given legally, an authority other relatives may later assume is real. The psychology here matters too. Once a parent says something like that out loud, family dynamics tend to calcify around it. The sibling who wasn't named may disengage from important conversations entirely, assuming it's not their role anymore. The sibling who was named may start making decisions alone, without meaning any harm, simply because permission was implied. Either way, the family loses its checks and balances, the natural back and forth that catches mistakes before they become serious. What to say instead? Financial and legal roles belong in documents, not dinner conversation. A power of attorney, a will, a named executor. These things should be decided with a licensed estate attorney and communicated to family as a decision that's already been formalized, not floated as a preference at the table. You can simply say, "We have our paperwork in order and we'll let everyone know when it's finalized." That sentence protects every relationship in the room. And now we're at the halfway point of this list, moving into the two items that carry the highest stakes. Number 4 is the one we promised earlier, the one that has nothing to do with money at first glance, and everything to do with it underneath. Here's the one nobody sees coming, because it doesn't sound like a financial topic at all. It sounds like an emotional one. And that's precisely the problem. The FTC's alerts on what are commonly called grandparent scams and romance scams describe a specific tactic. Scammers don't usually open with a request for money. They open by listening for loneliness, then offering companionship, attention, someone who calls every day, someone who seems to genuinely care. The financial request comes later, sometimes weeks or months later, once trust has been built on top of that emotional need. This connects directly back to Laura Carstenson's research. As people age, her studies show, emotional closeness becomes more valuable, and the desire for it becomes, understandably, stronger. That's not a weakness. It's a completely human response to a smaller social circle, especially after retirement, after the loss of a spouse, after friends move away or pass on. But scammers specifically design their approach around this exact, well-documented pattern. They are not guessing. The FTC's own consumer alerts describe it as a known, repeated method, because it works often enough to be worth repeating. Saying "I'm lonely" to a stranger on the phone, in a comment section, or in a new online friendship formed quickly, is not a character flaw, but it is information that a bad actor can use, the same way a burglar uses an empty house. It signals an opening. What to say instead isn't, "Never admit you're lonely." It's, "Choose carefully who hears it." Say it to your adult children. Say it to a longtime friend. Say it to a local senior center, a church group, a community class, places built for real, verified connection. The Stanford Center on Longevity's broader work on aging consistently points to structured, in-person community involvement as something that supports well-being far more reliably than an unexpected new voice on the phone who seems to have appeared right on time. We've covered money, we've covered scheduling, we've covered family roles, and now loneliness. But the final item on this list isn't about protecting your money or your house at all. It's about something people almost never say. And Bronnie Ware spent years listening to why that silence costs more than anything else on this list. Bronnie Ware spent years working in palliative care, sitting with people in their final weeks, and she wrote about what she heard in her book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, published in 2011. The regret she heard most often wasn't about money, or houses, or even family conflict directly. It was some version of, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings, and I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. Notice the shape of that regret. It's not regret over something said. It's regret over something withheld. An apology never offered. A boundary never stated. A thank you or an I love you that felt too vulnerable to say out loud. So it simply wasn't said year after year until there was no more time. This ties every earlier point in this video together in a way that might surprise you. The first 4 items were about protecting yourself by saying less to the wrong people, in the wrong moments, for the wrong reasons. This last one is about the opposite mistake, saying too little to the right people, out of habit or pride, or simply because the moment never felt like the right time. The pattern Ware documented suggests that the right time rarely announces itself. It has to be chosen deliberately before the option disappears. What to say instead is not complicated, but it takes courage. Say the honest thing to the people who have earned your trust, the ones from Block 3, the ones you'd actually name in a will, the ones from Block 4, the real friends and family, not the new voice on the phone. Tell them what you appreciate about them. Tell them what you need from them. Tell them if something is bothering you, instead of letting it sit for another year. Protecting yourself from scams and family conflict matters enormously, and that's most of what this video has been about. But Ware's research is a reminder that the goal was never silence for its own sake. The goal is choosing carefully who gets your trust, your information, and your words, so that the people who deserve them actually receive them clearly and in time. Let's bring this together. Keep your financial details, your schedule, and your family's legal decisions private. And let documents, not dinner conversations, settle who's responsible for what. Be thoughtful about who hears your loneliness, because that single admission is exactly what certain scams are built to find. And don't let caution turn into permanent silence with the people who have actually earned your trust, because, as Bronnie Ware's research reminds us, that's the regret people carry the longest. This is educational content, not financial advice, and nothing here is legal or medical guidance either. For decisions about your own finances or your family's arrangements, a licensed attorney or financial professional who knows your specific situation is the right person to ask. Here's a question worth sitting with. Is there something you've been meaning to say to someone and simply haven't yet? You don't have to answer that in the comments, but maybe you'll answer it to them today. If this kind of clear, grounded thinking is useful to you, consider subscribing to After 60 Compass. We'll keep doing the homework so you don't have to.